I think it is now. I had to take that break. I felt extremely overwhelmed. Thank you now, better. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so like I said, it has costed me almost everything to tell this story. And the most difficult part about, this story is that for decades and for years, I've always been silent about it. And it contributed massively to me turning out as an irritable child and just not wanting to be a part of anything or anyone who triggers me or who takes me to a place where I feel like they're in control or they want to take charge of my life or they tell me what to do or how to be and how to live. Disconnecting, literally. And just to get into the whole thing, my transition to university, I'd say, was something that came as a miracle to me because when my dad accepted to actually have me pursue broadcast journalism as a course, something that, wasn't expected. Maybe it would have, maybe the, maybe, maybe he would have wanted me maybe to be an engineer or a doctor or maybe even a teacher, maybe because I don't, I don't think, even though at some point, now that I'm an adult, at some point I've had tutor gigs or tutorial gigs where, I've been invited to, take through, students at some higher learning institutions about, some 1, 2, 3 things in the broadcast space. But I don't think I would have pursued education as a major, like as my whole forte, as my whole career. And so that just being accepted by my dad, it was the biggest breakthrough for me because I always knew and I always wanted that I'd be a radio. I knew that I'd be a radio and a television personality and a broadcast journalist for that matter. So that was a big breakthrough. However, it wasn't easy. It didn't become an easy thing when I took on that journey of being a broadcast journalist. Of course, joining now university, I was accepted into uni after we applied I think on Thursday, and then feedback came on Friday, and then the joining of the university transition was supposed to happen the following day on Monday, and that was in 2014. I believe it was in 2014. Yes, in 20 was it in 2014? 2014 or yes, it was in 2014. In 2014 in May. May, yes, 2014 May. Yes, that's when I joined multimedia to pursue broadcast journalism. And my stint at the university wasn't easy. And I'll get to that in just a bit. But also, there was a little bit of culture shock because I was coming from a homestead where there's a lot of things that had happened to me that had just, made me to hold back on my personality. I wasn't as expressive as I was, especially when I was at Fountain Gate School. I was really outgoing. I was a talkative person. I had this critical mindset and this critical personality where I'm always a part of conversations. I remember during my stint at Fountain Gate School, even in high school, I'd sneak in, pull out the Pulse magazine, check out the lyrics of the day, check out the models of the day, what song, was hitting and breaking and shaking the entertainment sites. There used to be, was it Insider? Yes. Insider was like the greatest and, go-to for entertainment news that time. And I just wanted to be a part of that culture. So I listened to Kiss FM during high school. When I was in high school, I'd sneak in once or twice because in our house, we didn't have a TV for the whole entire stint. I was in the household. We didn't have a TV. And that's just another story for the day. But I wanted to be on TV and radio. And so what I'd do is I'd check out the magazines and the newspapers and, I'd see what was trending, what was hot and what's not. And it's interesting. That's usually my tagline: what's trending, what's hot and what's not. And that just made me to go deeper into the world of being, broadcast journalist. And I'd read about, some of the, hottest radio personalities. I tune into Easy FM. I remember when I was at Fountain Gate School, there's days I tune in to listen to Sheila Moniga. And I just get inspired, like, how do you just get behind the deck? And you say all these interesting things and you give giveaways and you tell people about traffic. So I was really gravitating towards that because that's what I wanted to do. And plus, it really felt entertaining, and just soothing, listening to good R&B music on radio. So I'll check out the lyrics of, trending R&B songs. There used to be a page on Pulse magazine. That was always my newspaper every Friday. I'd Whenever dad would buy newspapers, after he's done reading it, I'd go secretly, pull it out and go with it to my bedroom and I'd check out all the updates. And I just wanted to be a part of that culture. So my stint at the uni, that's when I think a little bit of chaos now, broke loose because during my first year at the university, I lived at not even my first year. I think during the first month at the uni, I was living at my auntie because when I was transitioning from, our dad's household to now uni, what was you go, they'll give you a place to stay and the rest will be taken care of. And that was not exactly how it happened. So for a first couple of months at the university, I transitioned from my aunts to the university for classes. And during the second month now, they had to look for a hostel. And I'd say that's when a difficult life started ensuing, in a sense that after they found the hostel, um, yes, there was a bit of money that would be sent for my upkeep, but due to the projects and everything I was doing in between and even trying to adapt, I'd always end up broke by the second week. So I'd starve. There's weeks and days I'd starve. So I'd say my first year at campus was really extremely difficult. And you have to dress up. You're going to class with people, and remember, this is broadcast journalism. This is not like agriculture or engineering where you can have just one shot and do everything all at once, and the rest, you have to do presentations, you have to do piece to camera projects, you have to present shows, this project, and you have to look good, you have to look and sound the part. So for me, I didn't have the money. I didn't have enough money to actually take care of all of that, especially during my first stint, especially the first semester at Kandi. So I'd always end up, broke. And then I'd start making phone calls to my aunt, give me 100 bob for lunch, give me 100 bob for lunch. So life became extremely unbearable in campus. Towards the end of that year, my first year at campus, that I starved at some point. I remember now when I was living in the hostel, there used to be this dude, I don't exactly remember his two other name, but he was some sort of like a cool kid, okay? So he'd buy all this, the way you go to a restaurant and you get all the juicy, sumptuous, foodstuffs on the menu, and he'd come with them at the hostel, and then he'd eat. And interestingly, he never used to like finish all his meals. He'd just like eat surfacely and leave the rest. So whenever he'd leave for classes, I'd jump on the remains and eat them, because there's times I didn't even have 100 bob, bro, to eat lunch at the mess. And I remember at some point making a phone call to one of the aunties, and I actually begged her just for 100. I think it was 50 bob, and she gave me a very heartbreaking response. And I think I was just in the verge of actually like quitting. I was on the verge of quitting campus, dropping out, and maybe just, I don't know, I didn't know what to do with my life. I was extremely heartbroken, depressed. I was losing weight massively. And so it was a difficult period. So when that year ended, I told myself, you know what? I will not come back to starve again the following semester during my first year at campus. So in 2015 now, during the second year of the diploma, I decided to just like stay, like I stayed home just a little bit. I think it was a week or two. A week, yes, I'd say a week, yeah. It was a week. So when you come back, usually in campus, especially if you want to get a hostel, you must come earlier so that you book it and pay for it, yeah. So I intentionally delayed because of what I had gone through with starving and eating. Because there's like I said, my roommate would finish eating some of his foodstuffs and he'd throw the rest in the dustbin, and I'd go remove them up and eat them. So I was like, I'm not gonna get used to this life. I'm not gonna starve anymore. So I'll do this. I'll delay my return the following year until they either get me a home, they either like maybe get me a hostel outside campus, because if I continue to live in campus, then I'll starve to death. I'll starve to death. And that's something that I had gone through for a very long time. So I delayed my return. That was during the second year. And I came when hostels were already out, you know, normal hostel. So that meant I had to partially stay now at my aunt's and transition to university for classes on and off, on and off. And that was not welcome. It was not a decision she loved or she welcomed. So, you know, it became dramatic. I remember one day in the evening, I came back from school after classes, after lectures, and I remember them just telling me, you know what, students live in hostels and they sleep on the floor. You figure out where to go the following day. Yeah, and that was it. I remember going to the bedroom and I cried like a little stupid baby. I was like, so where will I go? Bro, I don't have money to rent a house or a hostel, you know? I have not established, like I'd say, real friends outside campus who I'd say, you know, I'll just move in with them. And plus, I don't have the money to even book for a hostel. Even if I was to book for a hostel, where will I get the money? I didn't have it. So I cried that night as I went to sleep on the floor. I was living actually at my aunt's in Rongai. And the following day, so I told myself, you know what? If I have to be homeless, if I have to live on the tree, if I have to sleep on the streets, I better do it, because in that house, it was extremely unbearable. These people would treat you with contempt and full spite and hatred. Like they'd show you you're nothing. You know, the ways somebody can demonstrate to you that I don't want you in my house. Move, go. You are occupying space in my house and I don't fucking need you. Move. Like that was the cold treatment, bro. The cold treatment, bro. So I'd ask myself, like, God, what did I do wrong in this life? Why am I even going through this? But I was always angry. I was always angry. So I told myself, I will do whatever it takes, whatever it takes. Even if I have to sell my soul, I will. I will. I just don't care. I don't give a fuck. If I have to sleep on the tree, if I have to sleep under the bridge, I don't give a fuck. I will do it. And so the following day, I packed my things. I put them in the suitcase, my outfits and everything, and I left. So I went to school, actually. I attended the lectures. And after the lectures were done, I think at around 4 p.m. So I just sat at the gazebo while just contemplating and thinking, so what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? Where am I going to go for tonight to sleep? Interestingly, it just happened. There was this dude who knew me from my Fountain Gate days, during my Fountain Gate days. And he saw me just sitting right over there at the gazebo contemplating and lost in doldrums of deep thought. And he was like, hi, Brian. Are you not Brian from Fountain Gate? I was like, yes, this is me. I know your dad. I know your dad. Your dad is, you know, he said something about my dad's career and the way, you know, he was an MD. Yeah. I was like, oh, wow. Yes. But I didn't know him. So he knew me, you know. So I was like, oh, God, thank you for answering my prayer. I had nowhere to go to. Now I have a person who's going to take me in. So we exchange, we have a conversation. He asked me, why am I holding my suitcase? Why am I sitting on my suitcase? Am I going back to the hostel or I'm exiting campus? So I tell him, I'm looking for a place to stay for the evening. So he was shocked. He was stunned. He's like, mbona unatafuta mahali pa kuishi? Kwani what's wrong? Mbona uingii hostel? I saw you in hostel last year. So I explained to him my whole situation. He's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't expect you to be going through this. I know your dad. Thank God he takes me in for the night. So I now start. It was outside. So I go to him. He was living outside campus. Yeah. So he had rented a bed sitter at just somewhere. I'd say it was like 20 minutes away from campus, 20 minutes or 15 minutes, depending whether there was partial traffic or not. Yeah. So he takes me in. I start, you know, crashing at his place. I start sleeping on the floor. So thank God he had two mattresses. But now the thing with him was, it was whenever he'd leave the house at 6 a.m. in the morning, he also wants you to leave the house that time, whether I have a class or not. So most of the time I'd just be hanging around at the shops. Like if he has a class, and there's days I think he used to have this freelance gig. So he'd leave, come back. And I only come back to the house in the evening since he had my stuff in there after he'd given me a call and be like, hey, nimerudi sasa unaweza kuja. So that means I'd starve during the day. If it was a lucky day, I'd so what I had to do is I had to start making friends real quickly with strangers. Real quickly, I'd say hi to someone, da 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 da. We start hanging out, we become friends. So there's a dude by name, let me not say his name, but he had this, a boutique where he was selling men's outfits. So I'd hung out in there once or twice. So I remember there's a day, I think a friend sent me around 2000 bob, and I bought a 500 bob t-shirt at his place, and we clicked and we became friends. So I'd hung out at his, shop. But he had this cousin who would ask me all the time, and you mean you don't have any other place you can hang out, you can hang around? Whenever we open this shop, you're always around here. Why can't you stay in the house? Dude didn't know that I was homeless and I was crashing out at a friend's place. So it became unbearable for me because the dude also, he'd, especially on Fridays, he'd bring somebody in the house and he'd like, today find a place, find a place. I'm having people in my house. So that means I'm homeless, bro. That means I'm homeless. I'm homeless. So, like I said, I started making friends real easily. So I became friends with this chick. I'm not gonna say her name, but she was part of the Mr. and Miss of, the way they contest in campus and whatnot. So I became friends with her. She introduced me to a couple of her friends, but she was all about, going out to the club, partying left, right, and center. So since I was homeless and I didn't have anywhere to stay for the night and go, we'd go spend the night at the club. So I remember when I started crashing out at her place, I think it was a birthday of her friend. I see her. She right now she's abroad. She's actually in the United States. Yeah, she moved to the United States. So it was during her birthday, and they were holding this celebration at a club in Westy. So she's like, why not? Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. But again, while all of this is happening, I'm stressed, I'm angry, I'm going through a lot of emotions and just confusions and so much, and self-hatred and just torture, bro. And I'm asking God, like, why am I going through this? Why can't I just be loved? Why can't I just be accepted? Where is my mom? So many questions. Why do they hate me like this? But you know what? Remember, I had told myself I will do everything I can to ensure that at least I get better, even if I have to sell my soul. I remember that's what I told myself. So I had nothing to lose but me. So we go to the club, we start drinking. We linked up with a couple of her friends. I think there were three of her friends. So we get to the club. The way the club scene is, everything going down. People are partying. It was on a Friday night, and we are over there. Drinks are being brought. For me, I'm just praying that she doesn't say she's bringing in someone so that, I'd be homeless again at the club, bro. I was praying in my heart. So we get drunk. Everything goes down, whatever happens in the club. And we end up. So what happened is, after we got extremely intoxicated, I think a fight broke out, right? And maybe we were kicked out. But the last thing I can vividly remember is me being pushed out of the club because there was somebody in the club who was screaming and shouting. And it's like she or they had beaten them or they had robbed them. This was at a club in Westy, actually. And I woke up at 3 a.m. in Kiambu Road with like around 3, 4, 5 people, surrounded by 3, 4, 5 people. I'm bleeding profusely, bro. I'm bleeding profusely. I'm bleeding profusely. And I just can't tell what exactly happened to me. I just can't tell. But I'm in extremely excruciating pain. I don't know if you've ever gone through a pain that, you know, Like you can't move, you're numb and you're just still. But again, it's laced up with a cocktail of just fear and shame. Like, how am I gonna even ask, like, who did this to me? Bruh, I moved out of that place. I remember calling one of my friends. He was that time he was actually working in radio, and this is a guy, by the way, who was like, say, he was like 2 years ahead of me in high school, and he ended up, making it in the broadcast space. So I'd somehow kind of wish like to look up to him, but we were not in communication. But because of trust and having a connection of like somebody who I knew from high school, I think it was easier to just give him a call and tell him like I told him I'm stranded. I just need 50 bob to help me get out of here. So I leave and I head back again to the friend who had told me that I can't live with you because on Fridays I have people now coming through, bro. Now I'm entirely homeless. So I head straight up to his house. Uh, thank God I found he's alone in the house. He takes me in again. So I act like nothing happened. So I take a shower. I didn't go to any hospital. I never took any drugs. I was so ashamed. I was so afraid, but I was in deep, excruciating pain. I never told anyone. I never told anyone. I never told anyone. Yeah, I never told anyone. I never even told him. And I just acted like nothing had happened. Acted like nothing had happened. Yeah. Yeah, so I just assumed nothing had happened and I kept on moving on. But I didn't know that that would come to affect me later on, throughout campus. So what happened next is what happened next is an intervention was done. And I remember calling one of my aunties to ask her for 1,500 bob to help me pay for a lodging to sleep at for the night. So she was shocked. She's like, "We thought, Brian, you're in Nairobi, you're living at your auntie's, you're in campus, you're doing well. Why are you asking for 1,500 to pay for a lodging?" And so phone calls were made, I think, to my dad. And then there's, like I said, it was an intervention. And finally, they found me a place to stay. So we found a single room and I started living there, at a single room. No, it wasn't a single room. I think I found three friends. I found two friends who we were schooling with at campus. And we had a joint, I think it was a one bedroom. So we started living together because I remember we parted ways again when they defaulted to pay rent. And now I became again homeless. And now came the feelings of anger, rage, extreme sadness, acting out, feeling irritable, and then insecurity. Like it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to make it through that time. It took me a lot. It costed me almost everything. I was ready to die. And then the suicidal ideations and just wanting to fight everything. Like I became resistant, extremely resistant to everything, everything, everything. I couldn't even I couldn't look at myself in the mirror for so long. Like I hated myself to the core. And I never told my dad, never told anyone, literally never told anyone, never told anyone. So what I do is I started self-medication, especially when I started out living in the single room. I started self-medicating on weed, alcohol, and plus so many other things. Like I couldn't like just get through the day sober. I couldn't get through the day sober. And the details of the people that did to me what they did to me, it was a group of both men and women. And plus, it was not, the reason why I believe it was not the lady friend and maybe her counterpart is because for her, remember when we were leaving the club, I think a fight had broke up, and she was with a group of other dudes who I believed maybe the intention was maybe to harm her because she was one of the prettiest chicks. Remember, she was contesting for Mr. and Miss, So she always easily had people like streaming towards her. So when I became her friend, maybe I was also a target. I became a target of some sort. But that was not the first time this rap situation was happening to me. It's something that had happened to me as well in boarding school when I joined in for the first time. So it was just like another pattern had replayed itself. So I was defenseless, bro. I couldn't say nothing. I had no power. I didn't know words that I'd used to report, bro. I was homeless. I was everywhere. I just wanted a place to stay and feel safe. So I had to get through it, man. And like I said, self-medication now just started taking over my life. I became full-blown dependent on weed. Like I couldn't get through the day without like three or four blunts of weed per day to just like forget the ordeal and forget the state I was in and to make it through my day. So I became emotionally and mentally numb. Until now, I'd say I almost dropped out of campus because my performance in campus went down. I was missing lectures. I was missing out on cards. There's lecturers who were following up on me, and I was nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be heard from, and they absolutely knew something was wrong with me. And I think now, towards now the end, that's when like I started becoming conscious about like I need a shoulder to lean on. I need people that can support me, but it was not coming from my family. So I had to start, like I said, I had to start making friends with strangers easily. So I'd had a friend, I'd have a friend who could like easily buy me alcohol. I'd have a friend who could easily send me money for food. And I just became a wild card. I became crazy. I became cuckoo mentally. I was losing it mentally. And I say those were my most extreme suicidal years because I felt like I had nothing to lose, bro. I had lost myself, I had lost myself. And my goal was to just make my dad happy and become the journalist and the broadcaster that I always dreamed of and wanted to be. So things become thicker now because I was now nearing towards the end of my stint in campus. I think a year now. So I had to now start doing the cards, start updating my marks. The projects had piled up, bruv. There's a place now I had to go for an internship. I have to look out for the next radio or television that could possibly accept me. I had to do everything, bro, on my own. And you know very well in this Nairobi city, things don't just come easily like that unless you have connections, especially in the broadcast space. If you don't have connections, if you don't have connections that come either from your family or somebody who loves you and who knows you, or you're just extremely talented and gifted, maybe like I was and like I am, I still believe I'm extremely talented and gifted. I can easily get things and things easily flow towards me that I need and I want. It's just God's grace and mercy. So it wasn't easy as well. So finishing the cards, I now start working in campus radio. I become, an admirable guy who, lecturers are speaking so highly of in terms of my performance as a radio presenter and a producer on the university radio. I curate some sort of like a name and fame, in campus. And now I finish up, I graduate, and then I start auditioning now to be a comedian. Because I remember as well going to audition to be a comedian on Churchill Show in 2016. And I remember there's this comedian by name Sami Kyoko. The same day he auditioned, that's when I auditioned as well. Thank you. The same day he auditioned, that's the same day I auditioned. And I remember meeting him at Carnival because I alighted at Langata Road, and you had to walk to Carnival. So we walked together. I remember exchanging stories with him. He told me he had been doing set books and travel theater, I believe, if I'm not wrong. And so we become friends. For me, my story to him was, I'm looking for anything that can get me to TV and radio because I had just graduated, and I was looking for anything that could land me in the mainstream space on TV or radio. So we exchanged stories. Um, I think we exchanged contacts at some point because we are going to audition back then. Back then, Churchill Show was open for auditions, like anyone. And so there were so many people who would flock at Carnival to audition to be comedians on Churchill Show. From like they do mass auditions, and the best would be shortlisted, and they'd appear. I think on Churchill, was it on Churchill what? The Thursday version, yeah. So for me, I didn't know that for you to be a great comedian, you must write down your jokes. So I remember going in front of Butita. The judges were Butita, Terence Creative, and another lady. And that time I can attest Terence Creative was just a walking chimney, in a sense that this dude would smoke like 3 to 4, 5 cigarettes within a span of 10 minutes. So you'd see just huge clouds of smoke bellowing out of his nose. So I remember now when it was my turn to audition before him. So Sami Kyoko was in front of me, right, on the queue, on the line, because the people would flock in, and then you queue in, and then they listen to you and how you're cracking your jokes. They get to see if you have some sort of like a funny bone. They tell you to stand on the left. If you don't have, you stand on the right, and then they tell you guys, kujeni tena siku ingine. Yeah. So that's what happened. Yeah. And when it was my time, so I arrived. And standing in front, hey, bro, my mind goes blank. So Butita and Terence Creative, they just said, So my mind goes blank. I remember because I was cracking my jokes in English, and so Butita tells me to, I think he told me to, he asked if I've ever heard of the Kim Kardashians and whatnot. But yes, I had covered Kim Kardashian on a story that I was doing on a campus segment about hot trending topics. So I had known about keeping up with the Kardashians, but not like I was into watching their shows. But for a segment, because I had been given a segment on our campus radio where I was doing, celebrity gossip updates. And it was actually an imitation of the Daily Dot on Kiss FM, which I'll later on tell you about how I got to apply to be a presenter on Kiss FM, and then maybe finally got there like 7 or 8 years later. So Butita tells me I should act, and since I'm speaking in good English, try to act like you're arguing, like it's Kim Kardashian arguing with Chloe, I think. Bruh, I didn't even know how to sound like Kim Kardashian. I didn't know how Kim Kardashian sounds when she's arguing. So later on, I now started just watching everything. And I think that's how my comedy career died on Churchill Show. But it never ended there. I became an audience. I became a complimentary audience. I think I had, like I said, I easily made friends with people who are around. They're like, oh no, da, 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 da. I didn't know, like, you can go through campus radio and still, do these other things. So I partially became friends with Sami Kyoko, but later on became a really big comedian. And yes, I became friends with a dude who was in the production crew at Churchill. So I'd get complimentary entrance and sit to Churchill Show. So, all the Churchill shows. Plus, there's this chick, her name is Valnika. She'd give me, I think she'd send me some money in between. So we were very tight. We were as tight as thieves. So I gained audience and became, let's say, a constant member and attendee of Churchill Show. And I think that's when I met at some point Churchill Show at the Lou, said hi to him. He told me, hey, and but I never made it as a comedian on Churchill Show. And I think from there, next is now applying for gigs. I think I applied for a gig at Kwetu Radio. I started volunteering to work at Ebru TV. I was pushing a lot. And I think I came to a place when I was now extremely sick and tired of campus radio because I'm not making money. Plus, I feel extremely tired because I'm auditioning a lot. And I tell myself, I have to now start auditioning to just be an actor. So I go to Kenya National Theatre. Again, I make friends with this mama who was in a TV advert that time. That TV advert, I think, was airing on K24. Back then when K24 was a real station. And so she links me up with the auditions, and I become again ingratiated into the world of acting. So the thing is, whenever I'd go to audition, they'll always say they want somebody who has maybe like some sort of like an American kind of an accent, somebody who's a little bit lighter skinned or fair skinned, or somebody who's a little bit taller and huge or bigger and buff. So it was always like, you are a little bit tiny, or you're a little bit darker, you're a little bit, you don't have that accent that we want. There's always those things in between, the colorism and whatnot. And I'd end up again heartbroken, and just sad and ashamed, But I kept on going. I kept on going. So I remember after now I stayed away. I was like, I'm done with this broadcast thing. I don't want it anymore. Maybe I should try being a pilot or into aviation. So I make friends with somebody who is working at Wilson, yeah? And he tells me, you create a CV, go do a short course online on how to be a customer care executive at an airport. So I take a short online course and I curate a CV and I send it to them. And now, bro, I started again to apply for gigs on how to be, what are they called? A steward. I even applied, I think, for gigs at Emirates and at Etihad. And some of them actually were successful. But the thing was, there was a gig where I went through the interview successfully, but they needed me to have an EU passport. So I didn't have an EU passport, and there's no way I could travel, and they were not actually going to cater for my EU passport. There was one where they needed me to have, I think, I needed to be at least 27 and above, and maybe I think I was 25, or I was clocking 20s, Yeah, I think I was below 24. So there's no way they could take me in. So I was so devastated, bro. And now again, I get back to start auditioning again. So I think a phone call was made. My dad made a phone call to me and told me, you have to go to campus and just get a degree again. Because I remember him telling me, I don't think it will be easy for you if you stop your education there, because in the future, they'll need people to have degrees to be employed or hired for, or for you to be considered for a gig or to be taken seriously, at least have a degree. I was like, no, I'm done. But again, I had a meeting with myself and I told myself, you know what, let me go. Because I remembered the troubles and the chaos I had gone through during my diploma, and then being sexually assaulted and never telling anyone, and being homeless and eating from the dustbin. Now, I was done. Done. Mm-mm. And then I had to go back to campus. So now I have more life experience, more life training. I've harnessed a lot of traumas, but I have no choice but to go back to the uni. So I signed up for my degree and I began pursuing my degree in 2017. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. But then now I had secured some 123 networks, volunteered, worked, auditioned, tried church. I had done so many things. Tried Swahili radio. It never worked out. I remember going to this station. What is it? It was 2FM. 2FM. It used to play some good urban, hip hop and R&B music. When there was Jeremiah Odhiambo, right? Jeremiah Odhiambo and Crystal Mbuga. Because I remember going there like 100 times. And I think the radio PC there was this dude. What is his name? Somebody Wambugu. He's still in mainstream media, actually. He's still in mainstream media. And I remember just trying to secure, just just to say hi to him. It took me like 3 weeks before he accepted to meet me. I'd go there and they'd tell me he's in a meeting, so sit in the reception. I'd sit in the reception for 3 hours, and the reception would come and tell me, you know what, he has said no, he's not seeing anyone today. I'd go and then come back the following week, again, come back. So until I gave up. So there was a time now, I think I went for a year and then came back the following year. And he was like, just come and do a voice test. So I did a voice test. My voice test was to update on what was happening at the BET Awards in 2017. Yes. So I don't know who was the host that time at the BET Awards in 2017. But yeah, I can't exactly vividly remember the person who was the host. But then it was just about urban R&B, hip hop, entertainment news at large, both locally and internationally. And he told me, you have a great voice, but you just need a little bit of training so that you can do voice inflection, vocal inflection. Like the quality of your voice wasn't as strong. Like I wasn't as loquacious as I am right now. Right now I can give myself credit because I've done so many broadcast gigs and jobs. I become a pro. I can give that credit to myself right now because I have put in the work and I've gone through the pain and what it takes to actually be one. So I wasn't that, interesting to listen to on radio. That aspect of, being chatty and gabby. I didn't know the dynamics of being on a mainstream station. So it took me quite a bit of time. And what happened is now I'm just in campus, like taking it one day at a time. This time round, I'm laser focused. I'm conscious of myself, but I'm still self-medicating. Once or twice, I'm hooking up and linking up and drinking alcohol, but I still feel irritable. I'm still insecure. I'm still angry at myself. I'm so mad at God. I'm bitter. I'm lashing out. I, I just felt alone. I felt alone. I felt alone. And then now the suicidal ideation, they just, it like quadrupled. So I knew if I can't make it through campus successfully, then who's going to take me in? So I had to again like up my game. So I remember there was a station that came on the market and they were looking for, no. No, yes, it was a station. Yes, it was a TV station. And it just so happened that the church I was attending, the owner of that media company was also in the church. So what they did is a phone call was made, but I still remember I'm still doing campus radio. So I'm like, I'm still now comfortable in my campus radio. I have a name, teachers are praising me. It's again, just massaging my ego. I feel like I'm the star. Nobody can tell me shit. You can't talk to me the way you want. Shout out to Okemo, by the way. I worked with him for a very long time in university. If I'd ever do a documentary about my career, that dude can tell you stories about how I began my broadcast career in campus from scratch until I became a campus star and then went to mainstream media on my own without anybody's help. So yeah, a phone call was made and they told me, you know what, we are starting a radio station. So what we need you to do is just record. So what I do is I record, drops, they're called drops and sweepers and bumpers. So I record and say, you're tuned into this and that, it's happening this and da. So I'd record that at the campus production booth and then save it in the flash disk and I'd deliver it to the radio station. So they still run the radio station through the servers. So yes, you can have a radio frequency and not like not like it have an outreach of different locations, but you're just still running it from your house in the server. So maybe within the locality of the frequency that you bought, whether if you're streaming online or just on that still public frequency, frequency module, people can still listen to it even when you guys have not set up like a studio. So it will run in the servers and people would tune in and be like, oh my goodness, who is that? Who is that? Who is that? So it again started giving me exposure and a name. And then later on, they set up a full-blown studio and I became a presenter. And let me tell you, let the chaos begin. Chaos erupted. It's like they hired people. I think, I don't want to mention their names, but there's like, those stations do like a mass exodus, like mass firings and whatnot. This was like a mass poaching. They poached people from certain neighboring station. And by the time they were coming to this station, while I was there, they were being told, Sako is the star, Sako is the star. So there was hate. There was hate and spite towards me. So I'd be set up, they'd orchestrate things. And then now me with my mental health issues and being irritable, I'd act out, I'd act out and I'd go drink and I'd cry and whatnot. So many things happened, bro. So many things happened, bro. I remember trying out a gig at K24. It backfired. I think what happened is I got stuck on traffic. The interview was to be at exactly 10 a.m., right? But I got stuck on traffic until 9:45. So by the time I'm arriving at K24 at exactly 9:58, downstairs, I was told, you know what, we waited for you until 10 a.m. on the dot, so we can't have a nice day. And I remember losing it mentally. I lost it. I was so extremely disappointed and heartbroken. And I remember calling my dad and telling him, you know what, I just want to end my life. I'm ending my life today. I am done. I am done. I am done. I am done. Like it was my only chance because I had done so much and these people are considering me for a news anchoring spot. And now I can't get it anymore, bro. It was like my whole life came tumbling down before me while I'm watching, seated right over there. And that was it. That was it. I still was doing the other station. Uh, a lot of things happened. I got fired in between at some point. Now, the worst that happened is my dad ends up getting abducted and tortured. I was laser focused on making my dad proud. Like I had told myself, the best thing I'd reward my dad with is getting onto a mainstream TV and radio platform and just have his name and my name right over there. So my dad gets abducted and tortured in 2019. I'd say during towards the end of 2018, now 2019, I was fully immersed in campus radio. Like I just wanted to be a radio star. So I closed out everything and focused on my radio skill and my TV skill. I learned how to edit news feeds, films, everything. Learned how to produce, learned how to direct, learned how to host. Like I was a superstar. I was a superstar without even before even I became anything in mainstream media or anyone giving me a gig. So I was ready to face the mainstream space. And my dad, gets abducted and tortured. It's again taken over by mainstream media. Something that again just broke my heart and made me lose it mentally. It took me a very long time to heal and even come to terms with what had happened. I think I lost it mentally and emotionally. I lost it. I lost it. I lost it. It took me quite a bit of time to actually process that. Because I remember receiving a call from one of the aunties and they're like, whatever you're doing in Nairobi, one day you'll come back and your dad is dead. So I'm like, what do you mean my dad is dead? Yeah. Or I'll come back when dad is dead. So I didn't know that, there's some issues that my dad was going through, with the company he was working for, but they were just festering and in between. So he had never shared with me anything. So also there's nothing I would have done anyways, because I was also in mental chaos and confusion. I'm trying to just succeed in broadcast space. I'm going through so much, nobody on my side, you know. So yeah, he dies in 2019. He passes on in 2019. And boom, I think that's when I just realized that there's nobody on my side. There's completely no one on my side. Like, trust me, no one is on your side but you and God. And I think that's when I, at some point, updated a status and said, I just feel like there's nobody else in this crew who is in favor of me. And I can honestly tell you that nobody has ever been in my favor. Nobody has ever just said, hi, Brian, how are you? We miss you. It's been a long time. It's always threats. It's always threats. Do this or do that. You've not done this. Oh, we schooled you. Yeah. Because the other day my mom was calling me and I'll actually tell how I met my biological mom. She called me and told me, this family will hate you forever if you keep on saying these stories, threats and just warnings and ultimatums, and don't say this because we schooled you, we put you to school. It has always been blames and blames and blames and blames. And that's what actually contributes to me to like just cutting people off. Like I've been through so much mentally and struggling with suicide and sadness and pain and abandonment and rejection and being sexually assaulted. Don't hassle me. Don't stress me. Don't heckle me. I will cut you off like you never existed. Because you can't take me to a darker place where I was at. And I think through such experiences, I've just developed a thicker skin. But I say I go through bad days too. And especially dealing with that. And then now meeting my biological mom after my dad's burial is something that I never believed, would have happened to me. First of all, I didn't even know that I had a mother. Me knew like my mother rejected me and she never wanted anything to do with me. It's 20 plus years. And like I knew she's dead. Actually, that's what I knew she's dead. She never wanted me. Nobody wants me. And I have to go through life knowing that I only got me and nobody else got me. So it was from it was dumbfounding to realize that my mom was still alive and she also had her own story and whatever happened. So yeah, and here we are. But in terms of seeking psychological help, once or twice I attempted it, but I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it because no, I can't just sit down with you, bro. And what I say is I was coached. I was coached on how to conduct myself as a person who was going on air all the time. Because I remember when I got now the news anchoring gig, also other chaos erupted, the sabotaging and everything. And payment issues and being on ultimatums, the mental and emotional torture. I'd come back home in the evening and just like I'd undress up and lie flat on the floor and cry like a stupid baby. So I'd cry in the house every evening at night and then turn up to work happy and excited on the air. So nobody knew that I was crying every evening in the house. And at work, I'm turning up all excited and happy until I just got tired of the cycle. And yeah, finally I end up being fired and boom, it was just crazy. It was just crazy. But it took me such a very long time before I stopped self-medicating. Self-medicating was always to help me run away from myself, like run away from the chaos, some of these things that I had gone through, how I used to view myself. I was so scared of actually looking at myself in the mirror. So it took me quite a bit of time before like I confidently would look at myself in the mirror and just say, oh, this is how you look. It took me quite a bit of time. It took me quite a bit of time. And I say I was always ashamed. I was always ashamed of telling my story about, being taken advantage of sexually, or being in a situation where you wake up and you just can't tell like what exactly happened. And I was bleeding profusely. I was ashamed. I was afraid. And that just took me to a place where I was walking on eggshells. Like I didn't want to tell this story to anyone. I didn't want anyone to know. I had the fear of actually speaking about it. So like I said, it costed me a lot to just sit and talk about it. And now I'd say I have the courage to talk about it unashamedly and unabashedly. Um, Sometimes you just gotta say fuck it and tell it and go through it because I have nothing to lose. I felt like that time I had lost everything and my whole world was tumbling down and I had no one on my corner and I had to get through it by myself. So is there anything I have to lose? No. That's why I said in the beginning of this video, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. And don't come for me. Yeah, I think that's what I said. Somebody had sent a message on me. Friend, yeah. Let me see. Mm. Did you go to the doctor? No, I didn't go to the doctor. I'm actually seeing the text right now. Yeah, this is from a friend. No, I did not go to the doctor. I was afraid. I did self-medicate myself, but like I said, I was bleeding. I was bleeding profusely. And also I was afraid and ashamed to actually tell it and talk about it. Has that affected your sexuality? Yes, it did. 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 Um, where was your mom? Like I said, I met my mom in 2019 after dad died. So my mom was not in the picture. So I had this mentality that my mom didn't want me. Maybe she died years ago. Nobody ever told me anything about my mom. All the stories I'd hear about my mom were extremely cringe stories that would make me resentful. Yeah. So when I told my mom, no, 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 I'm not told my mom. She'll just watch this. She'll just watch. I can't do those questions, bro. I can't do those questions, bro. Yeah. So that's that. Yes, there's facets of me that changed. There's there's I'd say things in me that broke. How I view life is also different. But through all those things, I've had to garner the courage and the boldness of just like walking through life without shame or fear. I don't think you can break me if you try me. I don't think you can. No, because I was broken many times until the only choice I have is to be strong. So try me and you will see. Try me and you'll find out. Not that I'm boasting, but just borrowing from the things I've had to weather through. Don't come for me unless it's sent for you. But yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up. That's what's up. That's what's up. It was such a difficult story to tell. At first, I was overwhelmed. So yeah, that's what's up. Mm. Trying to focus. Try to focus on comments if you need more engagement. Mm. Okay. Thank you. Have a nice day.